addressing our kind of classic new domain work and enhancements to that work. In some cases, the enhancements work is actually representing years of effort, whether it be the coding for food work or in planning phase or the program classification, which has been going on now for a year. So I'm really grateful. And again, I will go through all the process over the next couple of slides, and then we'll get into the content. Next slide. So thanks for joining. Everyone's muted upon entry. But we actually, this is a standard slide. There's actually not a ton of talking today. It's a very procedural meeting. It's kind of like the last 10 minutes of a board meeting where there's lots of voting and agreements and ensuring you have what you need, right? Because of all of the talking and consensus finding and collaboration we've done to date. So all calls are recorded. Everything's available on the Confluence. Everyone's encouraged to actively participate. Please send chats to everybody. And we'll be going through, as I mentioned, the process of how we vote in detail. And that's like the primary thing we want to make sure you get from a questions perspective is we want your questions about how to vote and vote with comment. We want to make sure they're clarified before the end of the meeting. Next slide. So as a HL7 accelerator and as a standard development initiative, we are required to follow antitrust practices. This is part of HL7 code of conduct. So we apply these both generally and most specifically, so you have to avoid any antitrust behavior violations, but we also just try to avoid any behavior that might be construed as an antitrust violation. So just know that it's very general and it's part of our the requirements of working within the HL7 system and developing standards. Next slide. Again, as I mentioned to some of the early attendees, oh, I know my cat, she's very cute. We're doing the coding for food. I have two cats. We're doing coding for food vote first because it's so specific and our SMEs then can leave, right? We'll talk in more detail about the vote, but because there's so many things we're voting on today, individuals will be able to vote on sections and not vote on other sections, right? So, and they also can participate in the call to a point and then drop off. So we'll be doing our coding for food, phase 2 consensus vote. Yay, Katie and Meg. I'm already in advance of hopeful consensus finding, drafting the Mira submissions for next week. And then we're going to go through a vote on the requirements and approach of program classification. Out of everything we're working on right now, there's still some comments on that. So there's some work to be done in integration, but just noting that that's what we're going to try. It's been stable for a very long time, but it is in an intentional review process. And then we're going to vote on the concepts that we're moving forward with the enrolled in program concepts. And that was the third element on the enhancements vote. And we hope to accomplish those things fairly quickly because again, they're fairly stable. And then we'll move into the domain work, hopefully by within a half an hour. That's my hope, and spend the final hour working through our new domain concepts and protective factors, toxic stress, and racism. And then we'll close. And when we close, we will close until August because we go on our summer holiday. Well, it's not really a holiday. We're just busily working, submitting all of the concepts and organizing all of our value sets and updating all of our materials and deliverables and terminology until and planning for the fall. And then we reconvene in August. Next slide. Okay, next slide. On pause, the terminology, usually we announce our meetings. So on terminology work streams on pause publicly, entering summer build after today, reconvening in public on August 7th. And we'll be back to every other week because right now we don't have an enhancements deck, set of things to work on. But if our members identify more enhancements areas, we will reconvene that every other meeting cadence because every week cadence because there's no way to address new domains and enhancements in one meeting. We learned that really quickly. Then on the technical work stream, the next meeting, Wednesday 1 to 2, is on June 11th. It's on social care capacity use case part 2 and prepping for the CMS Connectathon. We just had implementation affinity meeting. I rolled in from that. Our next meeting is on August 28th. And we're going to be focusing on the New York waiver, continuing to focus on not just our standards, what they are, but how our standards are getting implemented, with a focus on return on investment all across what that looks like, outcomes, reduced cost, and we were just actually talking about reduced patient and provider burden. So the focus of Gravity implementation affinity meeting, this series is all on ROI. My voice is still scratchy from attending a concert on Saturday. Forgive me. My voice is still like not the same. All right, next slide. Any other questions on the announcements? All right, next slide. The Gravity Project is a representative and sustainable consensus community that's collectively driving social care data standards to support the goals of population health and health equity. This is just refreshed with our steering committee strategic session this spring. Next slide. This is our lexicon. Not going to go too much into this today, but we just kind of ground in it each time. Next slide. Our members, we are so grateful for all of our members offering both the financial support we need to do our work and offering wisdom and guidance from our designated memberships, offering in-kind support like running the implementation affinity meeting that we just had, or supporting our technical work stream. Again, we couldn't do any of it without all of you, so thank you. Next slide. This is our 2025 roadmap. Here we are in May, closing out our spring terminology builds. And so we're going to go into our, as I mentioned, our submission focus, prepping for the fall domains, reconvening in the fall to address domains of food access, neighborhood safety, and access to green space. We're about to do a public request for subject matter experts. We always do an intentional focused look, based on, who we know in the ecosystem, who are leaders in this space. But we're going to be submitting, putting out a request for, proposals, and it's very evidence-based. So if you know of individuals who might be good subject matter experts in these domains, we just need a CV, because we do look for published leaders in the field, because the whole point of being a subject matter expert is grounding in the literature and evidence. So if you know of somebody who's able to represent those 3 domains, please let us know. As we were just talking, technical work streams working on really fundamental enhancements and updates to our implementation guide in STU 3.0. We just saw that in capacity, working on very fundamental things like standards for documenting program enrollment, which as a rural primary care provider, I am amazed do not exist yet, because I need it daily. And not just social care programs, even the evidence-based diabetes prevention program. I have no way of exchanging that information or documenting it in predictable ways. So I'm very much looking forward to that work and Gravity's leadership there. We're aiming towards the CMS Connectathon, as mentioned on the announcement slide, and we just talked about affinity group. So always busy, terminology publicly a little quiet for a couple months, and then back in action on August 7th. Next slide. I just want to mention, because it's really important, I think, to note that everything in Gravity is collective, right? Everything that happens on the roadmap is because members decide it in a vote. Right. So right now, our fall roadmap was voted on by members. Our work in 2026 will look the same. Our use cases and resources we're exploring in STU 3.0 were also member prioritized. Like that slide of the members and designated members, they are the guides to our work. So everything about what we do is collective, not just the workstream work, but how things get placed on the roadmap and what gets placed there is member driven as well. Next slide. Again, our principles, we state them every day, every time we convene. It's very important, though. Improving personal health outcomes, improving population health equity, ensuring personal control, designing appropriate solutions, ensuring accountability, and preventing, reducing, and remediating harm. you can always find everything on the Gravity Confluence. It's a lot better organized these days than it was before. So hopefully what you need is able to be found there. Next slide. Here we are at the end, 529, the consensus vote for all things Gravity terminology. A ton of content to get through, but very, very grateful. I just want to give a nod to the amazing Gravity terminology team. You know, you don't see them often on this meeting, their faces, but their voices are very present. So just a thank you to the women of terminology who guided us here. Sarah Bahal, who is the glue that holds it together. Asha Emanuel, who's back with us this spring and fall, I mean, this spring and winter. And again, going forward, it's been lovely to have you back. We missed you. So incredibly grateful to have you back with us. Monique Van Berkom, brilliant, you know, comes to us in kind from the American Medical Association, has been with Gravity for a very long time. And we welcomed in a new senior terminologist, Susan Matney, and just so grateful to have her. She's a, you know, an icon in the field of terminology. So we're very, very lucky. We have a really robust and wonderful team, and I wouldn't be able to do anything without them. And they're just wonderful folks. And I just want to give a nod as well to a very lovely and additional member of our Gravity terminology team who came on specifically for the new domain work. Kwesi identified him as a colleague and advocate and ally in our fall work, and so grateful to have you with us. This build has been a blessing, and we all are grateful for you. I had a SME meeting slide, thank you, but I didn't have a team meeting slide, thank you. So I just wanted to add it here. Thanks all, you guys are the best. Next slide. Okay, so here we go through the voting process, and this is the details. We just really want to make sure everyone understands. And this is what Rob and I were talking about as an HL7 accelerator. Sometimes all of this is happening within the Confluence through tickets that can be followed and interact with in a public method. We can do that easily. We can shift to that in the fall. We haven't done that before, but we've been thinking about doing that in the past. That's how things happen within the tech work streams. So it's reasonable. Gravity is just a little bit unusual on the amount of terminology we've created. So, but I think it's about time to integrate into those processes. So we'll do that. We'll plan for that in the fall. So the way we do operate by consensus principles, it's part of just the requirement of being an ANSI accredited org in our governance processes. So the way we do have different statuses for joining Gravity. There's committed party joining and other interested party joining. And then during the consensus voting period, everyone is asked to vote, the committed parties, and everyone can also vote, but committed parties are asked to vote on project documentation that have been developed as part of the community meeting activities. And then everyone has to be given a week to submit relevant comments on project documentation deliverables. For the purposes of Gravity, committed parties and subject matter experts are part of that consensus vote process. And but other interested parties can also offer comment. And so that's why it's so important for all of the SMEs to come, because their votes are ever so critical as the final documentation of the deliverable. And that's why we encourage committed membership and committed party registration, because again, it's part of that process. So we'll go more into the voting process on the next slide, but this is like kind of the nitty gritty nuts and bolts of the consensus voting process. Next slide. The 4 ways to vote, and we were just talking about this, are yes, which is a yes vote doesn't necessarily mean the deliverable is ideal, but it's better to move forward than to block the deliverable. Yes with comment is what Rob was mentioning. So there's comments, that can be submitted. They have to be submitted by June 5th. I think I just saw Rob's comment come across my email in a notification already. And so comments have to be resolved as part of the consensus process and it's expected that any comments will be addressed in a future version of the deliverable. Luckily, nothing we do at Gravity is static. We are committed to continually enhancing our work. And you can see that because we had to create a whole other meeting for enhancements just to address the breadth of terminology we've created and methods we've created and making sure they meet ongoing evaluation and fitness for purpose. You do have an option to formally object. That also requires a comment. And just by process, kind of like process ethics and consensus ethics, when you submit a formal objection, it needs to include a path to address to be addressed in a way that meets the known concerns of the participants on the project. We've all been working in community now for many, many months, and that long period of end-to-end review is intentionally designed to ensure that critical objections have plenty of time to be aired and addressed and resolved, right? And that's why we build that formal response, an end-to-end review. So if you submit an email with a comment in end-to-end review, we resolve it, right? And so by the time we get to the vote, the hope is there's minimal formal objections. Anyone's allowed to do a formal objection, but if you are formally objecting at this time, you have to include a pathway that acknowledges the consensus of the community to that point. And again, that has to be submitted by June 5th. And then of course you can abstain. The abstain is helpful here because there is so much content to vote on, right? So when you get that vote, you get the link, you might have no comment on program classification. You only know coding for food. You might not even feel comfortable voting on the cooking education concept because you only feel comfortable voting on kitchen tools. That is totally fine, right? So use that abstain to document things that you just feel like you're not comfortable voting on. Any absence of a vote also defaults to an abstention. Does that make sense? Okay. That's a lot of nerdy process talk. And again,
So,
in the future, hi, Lucy, yes.
Sarah, abstain does not translate into no, correct?
No, a formal objection is no, right?
Okay.
But if you do a formal objection and you don't send a comment in by June 5th, it defaults to an abstention, right? That's one thing that's important to note. You can't formally object without the comment as part of consensus process.
Thank you.
Yes. Hi, Lucy. Hi, friend. Any other questions? All right. Okay. That took a fair bit, but I think we're going to be great. We got this. Okay. I believe in us. Next slide. All right. So there's a voting poll. And here's Sarah Bahal, the wonders and amazingness of the amazing Sarah Bahal. The glue that holds us all together is ever so apparent because all of this was designed by her. Right? Yay, 3 cheers for Sarah Bahal. So there's the poll with all those options. I know, Sarah Bahal. There's all those options for abstention, but all the things up for vote are here. But there's the racism master list, toxic stress master list, protective factors master list, the addition of a new type of intervention in our intervention framework, promotion, which was critical for our protective factors work. And then, oh yeah, all of this will be added. That we're definitely going to have things added to the chat. This is going to come multiple times, especially when we're doing the content relevant. And then enhancements work. There's the coding for food phase 2 HCPCS concepts. There's the new concepts identified in the program gap analysis. There are the enrolled in program concepts that we identified for build that are available on the Confluence. And then there's the program classification. That's a lot of stuff. So if you think the Gravity terminology team's been busy, we have been busy, right? It's just been a very, very busy year. So Sarah, do you need more time to put those links in?
No, it's okay. I already put the links in.
You're amazing. You're amazing. Okay. One thing that's really important, Sarah B put this here, is you have to press submit for answers to be recorded. Please do not forget that part. And then email comments to Gravity at HL7 by 6/5. Another note, when pulling links from the chat, sometimes you have to press the link twice to get to it, right? And then we do have, if you go to the next slide, the voting poll link, I believe. Oh, I think we added that one. Oh, Jen, is that going to come up, Sarah B, when we do each of the different content bits?
I can resend it for whenever we go through each section. I'll also put it in the chat again.
Okay. Oh, there we go. I see that. I see that link there. That was at 4:22, Janice, she put that in there. Awesome. Okay, lovely. Thank you so much. Okay, now on to the content. Does everyone have what they need with the voting poll link? No sorries, friend. Also,
Yeah, so the vote form
okay,
has email and name,
okay,
but I'm voting for Regenstrief and I can't say that.
okay, that's important. I think we have you registered as that, but yes, noted. We can do an enhancement next time.
Thanks.
Yeah, we do have you as a clear, yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. Yay, I'm so glad it was easy. Okay. Next slide. Okay, well, actually, no, here. Again, we have 8 things to go through, 8 different content, areas of content. There's a couple new things that were in the master list links or the content links that Sarah Bahal dropped. But we just want to note that we're only noting those new things in our next slides because there's way too much to get through. So I hope that's okay. And again, that's been the precedent with the amount of content. And if you ever need more time to review, you can always request that same link for the poll just by writing gravityproject807.org. And so if something happens and you need the poll, just let us know and we'll give you more time. Like if you don't want to vote right now and you want to vote later, you have until the end of the day tomorrow. Okay, any other questions on the process? Okay, here we go. Next slide. We're going to do coding for food vote first. Again, I want to thank, I thanked the team at Gravity. I want to thank our Coding for Food friends, Katie and Meg. Katie and I have been friends for a long time and have been conceiving coding for food for a long time. So kudos to you, dear friend. I'm raising my teacup to you. At this milestone in completing this many year planned work. All right, next slide. So everything's simplified in our slides, as you can tell. So phase 1 was submitted in January. Phase 2 will be submitted Thursday of next week. Next slide. I made the huge thanks again to our advisory committee members. We couldn't have done it without them. Next slide. And our SMEs are here, and this is who I was saying hello to. Some of our SMEs are here on the call. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom. I always miss SME groups whenever I stop seeing them, and I've already told them it's going to be sad not to see you all. It was a return to my foodies, my food organic farmer Sarah DeSilvi, my origin story. So it's good to be back with you all. Next slide. There are no changes to anything in the kitchen tools, large kitchen storage appliances, small kitchen appliances areas. So there's no content to review. So you can go to that little link and vote on that if you like. There's only one thing that's changing in coding for food. And again, sorry to make it so anticlimactic because it's a lot of work and it's just one little slide. But next slide. There was one concept update on the cooking education. We added the units. I forgot the units on a couple weeks ago, so I put it here. The only update in cooking education is the addition of the units of measure, which will be billed in 30-minute increments to align with the diabetes self-management education precedent. Otherwise, no other changes. Amazing Herculean work across kitchen tools, appliances, and cooking education, coming to consensus quite swiftly, I think. It was just a lovely time. So thank you so much for all of you. And I will work hard to get these in with my friends at Katie and Meg, offering the billing sections that are not my forte by next week. All right. Next slide. Okay, any questions on that? Yay! I'll give my little cheers. Okay. Next slide. Thank you. So coding for food friends. That was the anticlimactic end of all of your many hours of labor. And so if you wish to get off this call, you can. Otherwise, you are welcome to stay as we go through other areas and enhancements and all the new domain work. Otherwise, my love and gratefulness for all of you, and I will miss you dearly. All right, keeping on going on. Next slide. There were 3 areas of enhancements in Gravity program enhancements. We wanted to do a comprehensive analysis of our programs to make sure we had all core programs represented. We worked on developing the open classification of social care programs for the purposes of navigation and connection, response to the call to arms in the HHS data strategy. And then we wanted to create concepts to document enrolled in program so that we could support demonstration of those standards within our goal for defining outcomes, right? So not just refer to SNAP, but patient enrolled in SNAP. And so we worked and completed all of these things. Sometimes, the classification took a year. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, next slide. So we did not, so the whole point of classification, as I mentioned, was to build in enrolled in programs. Example would be enrolled in Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program or SNAP. And we curated all the list of the high level kind of like must-have programs. It's been on the Confluence for evaluation for some time now. There's been no changes. And so the vote is to proceed with the representation, identification of concepts as identified on the Confluence. Yes, Janice?
Hi, thanks for all of this. Yeah, with the new SNAP requirements that appear to be coming out,
I know.
it's a mess. So like we
Yeah.
maybe would have checked, you might have asked people every 6 months, but now it's like 3 months and
Yeah.
it goes through. So anyway, it's just something to note, right?
Yeah.
How often this might get asked.
Yeah, I know. And part of like when we're working in the technical work stream on standards for exchanging enrollment information and use cases that are driving it, right? So the simplest use case is at the end of a referral request, right? Refer to WIC, enrolled in WIC is the answer. But as a FQ provider, I know that I share information on like for shared patients across social care teams on the daily, right? Trying to identify the programs that they were receiving and the programs that they've lost and the programs they're eligible for and yet not yet receiving. So the frequency of those check-ins is definitely something we're considering in the technical workstream solutions.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just even just saying, how is everything? Is there any issues with what we've talked about before? So they
Yeah.
don't have to fill out the whole form again sometimes, but you could still document.
Yeah. And then we also in our again don't want to get too sidetracked, but part of what we're working on in the technical work stream as well is trying to make sure that the information that's needed to establish eligibility is or recertification or re-enrollment is intelligently shared because it's basically just constant data packages. Like what WIC needs from me is the same for every single patient in WIC for the course of 3 years, right? So trying to make sure that we develop pathways to assist social care entities in offering services to maintain enrollment, right? So enrollment's not dropped. So we're working on all of that in the technical work stream as part of our 3.0 update. All right, next slide. I think we're good. And so again, the vote today and the consensus vote for program documentation is just building the enrolled in program concepts for all of those identified programs. Again, all programs that have been previously defined by Gravity. So the definition is nothing new. It's just adding, another data point. And understanding it will be enhanced over time. All right, thank you. Okay, you already have the link for the poll, so I'm going to keep on going just for the sake of time. Next slide. And program classification, next slide. And again, this is something that is going to have, the way we think about updating the program classification is aligned with how we update our value sets by building something that is this national and leveraged across so many different implementations. It's very similar to our value sets and its need to be consistently analyzed and updated for relevancy and changes. And so this is a first instance of what will be an every 6 month analysis and update. And Rob, this especially is primed for that JIRA ticket commenting. So when it's posted on the Confluence within HL7, it's going to be ripe for having an engaged and public method for, refinement and updates. But just noting what we're voting on now is what we have now, understanding it is going to be commented on, and implementation is going to be refined over time. And we are committed to, we're thinking right now, every 6 months evaluations and updates, reconvening our subject matter experts just to make sure it stays true to purpose and meets Simple Funder needs. So we're voting on the requirements that have been stable for some time. Hi, Lucy. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether the subject matter experts who participated for such a long time and so conscientiously doing all of this, do they actually take up what is decided as a result of all this conversation? Could I
Yeah.
say as an outsider that 211 LA, 211 San Diego, Find Help, Epic, Unite Us, they're all using the same structures that have been agreed to in the Gravity conversations. Is that true?
Well, we have to, that is a different thing than all responsive to updates. I can't speak for implementation. I know they're all committed to aligning with the classification we've developed. Whether it's aligning through mapping or aligning through direct build and supplanting their original classification, I can't state that right now. That's not the purposes of this.
That was
No,
my question, and I'm wondering if it's anybody's business or whether there's an antitrust issue talking about this, but someday it'd be interesting to know that. Thank you.
I do know that they plan to, right? So that's why they entered into it, is because it actually is burdensome on them to not. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent. I mean, each of these entities sent at least one person, more often two, for 2 hours for a year, right? To work on this. And they all individually have their own public curation processes with public feedback, right? So I'm hopeful, and more to come on that though. Their investment alone to this date is Herculean and very appreciated. But that's a good question, Lucy, and we'll learn more as we go forward.
Yeah. And if I
Keith,
can partially answer the question.
hello. Oh, you're
our-
here. Yeah.
Yes. Our goal is to do this work together once and establish that industry collaboration so that we're not building one-to-one mappings with 6 different code sets.
Correct.
So I think it's fair to say, yes, we've invested in this and committed to it and want to do it because it benefits us if everybody's speaking the same language.
Correct. And Lucy, he's speaking from 211 LA if it's not obvious by his name.
And
Right.
as a former Epic employee.
And as a former Epic employee too.
Thank
And as a
you,
SME.
Keith.
Yes.
That's really good to know that silos that would otherwise develop in response to constantly changing environmental demands are trying to be overcome and eliminated by this conversation. That's really, really commendable. So thank
I
you,
know.
all of you.
It's kind of like what Laura was saying and Emily were saying on the implementation affinity meeting a little bit ago. It's like there is a general recognition that even with the burden of creating common standards, like the effort is worth it, right? And if you gather the right people around the table, it definitely saves burden over the long haul because of the lack. Because each of, like, for instance, Epic had to integrate with each of these entities prior to this, right? And so creating like the Babelfish is good, and Gravity's just honored to be here. And this was a completely member initiated endeavor. It was not something that Gravity sought to do. Our members there
So
told
Sarah,
us
I listened to the affinity conversation for a while. I had a conflict, so I wasn't there the whole time. But it wasn't clear to me from that conversation what you just said, namely that all of these entities are doing this. So maybe there could be an infinity presentation from the group collectively about where are they, a sort
Cool.
of status
Yeah.
update
That's a
for
great
the
idea.
whole community about how these standards have influenced independent, previously quite autonomous organizations. Thank you.
I love that idea. And again, we have a lot we've had a philosophical conversation for a little bit. Well, not just philosophical, it's also technical. But that's a lovely idea. And I think, we are doing some presentations on this. There's a presentation at the Civitas conference on this work. So, and we'll keep on talking about it. But yes, and we're even thinking about hymns next year.
If
So,
that's recorded, send it to your Gravity community.
I will
Thanks.
definitely do that, and we'll try to bring it to the Gravity Collective as a whole as well. Okay. Next slide, we got this. I'm just realizing I'm getting sidetracked. So the primary work of the project is the program type groupers. That's went out for public comment. It's been stable again over the course of the last chunk of time, really 6 months stable. Next slide. So the domains that were addressed are listed here. Again, they've been stable for a very long time. The plan is to vote on the represented concept, structure, and requirements. If there's comments on the classification, understand that this is not a one-off. Gravity and the Gravity members are committed to stewarding it over time, and knowing that each of these entities have been stewarding their own classifications prior to this. So it made sense to all the members to meet together and do this work collectively. All right, and again, because it's going to be maintained similar to our value sets, we imagine, with a regular cadence of updates and resolution of comments, but not consistently, like on a 6-month cadence. All right, next slide. Any questions? Okay, I think we're good. I think I can get through the rest of the content by the end of the meeting. Next slide. Next slide, and this is a note that we added. I might get a little teary. I cannot state my gratefulness enough, and our gratefulness enough, all of us, including Kwesi, who has been working with the terminology team as a terminology team member since February. Gratefulness for the domain SMEs who, across really critical and complicated domains, have met for hours every week for months, offering their vast wisdom and deep care, and have helped guide us to this point. I just, again, sincere gratefulness, all of you wonderful, brilliant, kind, and ethical humans. I miss you. I will miss you. We will miss you. And I think it's not a small or incorrect statement to say the nation is going to be better for your labor and your efforts, and we're very grateful. Okay, next slide. Oh, no worry, Lucy. Thank you. Okay, next slide. So this is the basic approach to protective factors, really naming the strengths that we identify individuals to foster holistic health and well-being. And we've, it's a core part of nursing and social work and pediatrics. Lots of our literature came from the American Academy of Pediatrics. I see my friend Alicia was on the call, American Academy of Family Physicians as well. Just noting the protective factors and strengths-based approach, it was kind of a long time coming. Next slide. Next slide. There is no change to the instruments. These have been stable for some time. They've been available on the Masters on the Confluence, and incredibly grateful again for collaboration with the American Academy of Pediatrics, who are committed to representing Bright Futures methods for social needs screening and strengths-based screening within Gravity value sets. Met with them and are working on that partnership over time. Long, again, critical standardized pediatric developmentally appropriate screening for social needs and strengths and protective factors. Next slide. Next slide. So what we've been what the biggest work you're seeing and changes you see in protective factors are in how we are framing and phrasing things. We moved from, the biggest thing you'll see is we moved from adjectives, creative, to nouns, creativity. And that's because of what we really are naming, right? So we're not naming a thing about a person, we're naming a concept that the person leverages and has as an innate skill. And so that was a consistent change, and it's a better statement of what a strength is and a record. Slight changes in word choice, like enrolled in turning into attends a positive school environment. So again, the concepts haven't changed, but the words, like the wording we use have changed, and mostly it's moving from adjectives to nouns. Next slide. We did add a new concept for engaged in extracurricular activity. This is because as much as we wanted to address, you know, artistry or creativity or musicality as a strength, because people do identify those things as strengths within themselves. And as much as those concepts include appreciation, right? You can have musicality and just like to listen to music, right? You don't have to play music well. We realized we were missing that engaged in practice of concept. That's really a critical protective factor. So we created a concept for engaged in extracurricular activity specifically for children, because it's known to be a protective factor that supports as a pathway to community engagement, a pathway to resourcefulness, a pathway to feeling empowered. So we wanted to make sure that we included that. Again, there's standardized questions for asking about engagement in extracurricular activity and all of the Bright Futures American Academy of Pediatrics screening instruments. So it was an appropriate addition. And again, thank you to our friends, our experts who identified this gap. Next slide. And then this is a wording change, right? So we had, and we had talked about connectedness to different generations in the literature of Dr. Jessica Songwick-Ulrich, who presented with the National Indian Health Board on indigenous approaches to strengths and protective factors. We just hadn't identified this concept as clearly. So generational connectedness is one of those concepts, and pretty much everything within her framework we built and pulled into the protective factors approaches. So that's just a concept that was missing. And the nature connectedness stayed the same. It was really interesting to have all the international lit on that nature connectedness that we found. There's just a ton out there when we're working on references and definitions. Next slide. So articulateness was a concept that was identified, again, trying to, I mean, that's been stable for some time. And then we just added the aligned SNOMED code for feeling empowered. For empowered, not feeling empowered. Next slide. On to goals. Goals are easy. Yes, it is great, Janice. Yeah, goals are easy. Next slide, because we're not building any new concepts. In past domains, because we were identifying risks, the goals always were that positive balance. You know, we actually built a lot of our early protective factors and goal concepts within that balance work. But protective factors are the desired for state. They are where we aim to be. So we're exploring using goal attainment scaling to measure progress toward where the patient hopes to be in relation to that concept, in relation to resourcefulness within our goal resource, as opposed to using new codes. Oops, sorry, I might just left my earpod here. Next slide. Little
Imagine
ears.
financial stability instead of financial instability or insecurity.
I know,
I mean, imagine that.
I know.
How often
And then
is that going to happen? Okay,
I know.
thank you.
We did have those, like that financial security was built as a concept when we built financial insecurity, because we were, and we've always tried to work from like toward the positive, right? From a patient-centeredness perspective, but we know how tenuous that is. All right, next slide. This is the cool addition. I think it's cool because it represents something we've been doing forever and already exists in the literature and in terminology as well. Because of the critical nature of health promotion, promotion within nursing practices, and promotion within social work, there's actually a lot of promotion concepts within SNOMED and terminology already, and the definition we have here came directly from SNOMED already. So there's a good precedent, because when we work with individuals and their strengths, we really are just working to foster and promote what they already have. Next slide. Yay. All right. Any questions on protective factors stuff? Okay, great. And I think I did see my friend. Hi, Mark. Mark Savage, we did it. Protective factors and strengths. Only only many years in the planning. I know you were critical for advocating for the racism domain as well, but I want to note just that as a longtime Gravity friend, that
And
one,
more to come.
there's more to come, I know, but I want
Thank
to, I
you.
just want, yeah, I want to note Mark's foundational leadership and advocacy for many of the domains that we're addressing today. And I saw you on there, so I just want to call you in.
Thanks.
All
And to
right.
everybody else on the call.
I know, it's good to see you, friend. Next slide. All right, so here we go into the toxic stress, risk for toxic stress physiology and adverse childhood experiences domain. Next slide. Next slide. This is making me so emotional. It's all such critical stuff that these three domains are so critical and pressing, and the requirements are so longstanding. So I just had a little moment there. The instruments for identifying toxic stress have not changed, and so they've been stable for many months now, and they've been available on the masters. Next slide. Next slide. The diagnoses have not changed. All we've been working on really is the wording. And so we, again, there actually is like settling on a path is a lot of what you'll see here, but the 3 pathways for high risk, intermediate risk, and low risk for toxic stress physiology have been stable for a long time. And they align with the all California implemented ACEs aware risk assessment algorithm. So there's existing provider support for documenting these risk stratifications. So they have not changed. Next slide. We worked, a lot of what we've been doing in toxic stress is really diving in deep to the literature and the instruments and ensuring we have the diagnoses to not just represent the concept in the instruments as originally designed in the ACEs CDC Kaiser Permanente study, but also to reflect the risks that have been borne out through iterations and deeper analyses and studies, and to ensure we have the concepts that are important for clinical and social care partners at this time for documenting concerns. So you'll see all of those 10 core categories. We mentioned them early. The 10 core ACEs are throughout this work, but we're calling in specific highlights when necessary. An evolution of this is not just documenting when a household member is incarcerated along with ACEs and KP and ACEs screening. So that was not an original ACEs concept, Janice, but there's a lot of room to expand childhood, concepts and traumatic experiences over time. So our original mission was directly leaning into the 10 identified concepts and then knowing we can come back over time. But since we had household member incarceration, a reasonable building off of that is the specific risk of having an absence of a parent or caregiver to incarceration. This is also accountability to the incarceration domain that we did in the fall, where we identified a need to call in and the effect on parental incarceration or caregiver incarceration for children. So Janice, I hope I answered your question. Again, the only new finding here is not just documenting household member incarceration, but to ensuring we have the capacity to document parental incarceration, again, in line with the literature and in line with accountability to our incarceration domain last fall.
Yeah, I understand that. For some reason, I thought there was like just personal history, or I thought I'd seen before somewhere of, a loss of a parent, and then
There are
Yeah.
additional questions that actually ask about that, but they're not within the core 10, and some of our instruments
Okay.
do contain that. So you're not incorrect. That's correct.
Okay,
We're
thank
just,
you.
yeah. Okay, next slide. And then I just want to note, it was not represented. So for each of the diagnostic concepts in toxic stress, we have to build the currently experiencing, like the kid is in the household and this is happening, and the adult look back, right? So this is the currently experiencing that the kiddo is living in a household, living in a house with a household member who's currently incarcerated. And then the history concepts were represented on the previous slide. All right. This is the only change here. Next slide. And then goals, next slide.
Sarah,
Yeah, hi.
I'm sorry, previous slide, please. Yes, living in household with violence or abuse of household member. Does that include by household member? Or does this just mean someone in the household is being abused, but we don't know whether it's a household member who's doing that?
You are finger on the pulse. The questions ask just about really whether the kid's witnessing violence or abuse of a household member.
Thank
It
you.
doesn't ask whether a household member is perpetrating it. So it could be an external partner who's coming into the household.
Is
And
that
just want to
asked
note,
somewhere else? In the ACE screening, is that asked somewhere? Is someone actually abusing you?
oh yeah, there's definitely questions of experience of abuse. Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah. Personal experiences of abuse, emotional and physical neglect, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and physical abuse of the child.
thank you.
Right. But the household challenges include witnessing abuse of a household member. Okay. I think that it sounds like your question was addressed, and thank you for asking it. It's important. Next slide. So the additions here in goals are just refinements. So our colleagues in the ecosystem asked us to identify these two concepts that are really critical to the CDC. Well studied, well evidence-based, and really driving community level and action plans and person level action plans. And they are safe, stable, and nurturing relationships and safe, stable, and nurturing environments. If anyone puts those into a search engine, you'll see a ton of literature supporting these as goals for communities and individuals and families. And then we have our concepts on sleep as goals. There's a lot of other goals that are in the toxic stress master list as well. Next slide. And then these are the goals that relate both. So if you can imagine ACE's disconnect, we try to build we try to include both the specific goals for toxic stress physiology and goals that are aligned with each of the stress busters and the different stressors. So you see again these concepts that are in protective factors, cultural connectedness, community connectedness, family connectedness, diet, exercise, nature connectedness, mindfulness, stress management, feeling well. And then there's some specific toxic stress physiology goals with successful implementation of measures to reduce harm from toxic stress physiology. That was a request just because that's often all we can do, right? Specifically aligned with preventing toxic stress physiology is just try to do everything we can to connect and wrap around the kid and ensure we're balancing out toxic stress risk with connectedness and toxic stress addressing interventions. I think there's so much new content here. I hope it's been on the master for a bit, though we just haven't presented it. Next slide. Any questions on, if we can go back to that, any questions before, because that's the end of the new content for toxic stress. The rest of it's all on the Confluence, all on the master lists that have been posted for some time. Again, we're taking a new content presentation approach today. Okay. There's no questions. Again, I just want to note the curation of these amazing master lists and subject matter expert masters with Sarah and Asha. Meticulous, thoughtful, and I'm very, very grateful. So with that, we move on from toxic stress. Next slide. To our final domain. We've addressed protective factors. We've addressed toxic stress. We covered all the enhancements. So the final topic on our consensus vote for new domains is the work that we did with subject matter experts and community to address concepts in racism. Next slide. Thank you, Kelly. Next slide. I just want to again give, extreme gratefulness to our amazing subject matter experts who helped us in this work. So much of this work is based on evidence and literature that's been present for decades. The instruments here are no different. These instruments have not changed. They've been stable on the Confluence for some time and in our masters. Next slide. Next slide. What you're going to be seeing over the course of the next slides are concepts that, again, that have been on the master, but we haven't necessarily talked about them in community. So they're bolded here. They represent new concepts, and they also represent refinements to concepts. As with all of the conversations in the racism domain, I am honored and grateful for the expertise of my dear friend Kwesi, who I think is still on the call. Hi, there you are, friend. I see you. I lost you in the list of, yeah. So Kwesi is a subject matter expert and an amazing facilitator and guide in this work. And so if there's questions on content, he's here to assist as I detail the terms. He's here to assist in addressing any questions you might have. So the changes in the first two concepts is the addition of the concept of negatively to make sure it's very clear that the effect is a negative one. I want to thank again our subject matter experts and our dear friends for elevating the need to reflect and document chronic exposure to racism, which is known as weathering. And so as we sat back and looked at all of the racism concepts, we realized that we were missing some of the more chronic manifestations of it. And so weathering effect due to chronic cumulative exposure to racism was identified as a needed concept. And again, it's new to this meeting, but it's been on the master for view. There, on this topic, just noting much of the literature that we collated on the Confluence early in our work is regarding weathering. And so there's a lot of literature to support this concept available in the references sections of the Confluence if desired. Next slide.
Sarah, can I ask a question before you move on?
Please do, Mark, please, yeah.
Is the second line there, experience of racism negatively affecting trust, a subset of the first line, experience of discrimination negatively affecting trust?
It would be. I imagine Monique is our logic person. Is Monique on the call? We hadn't actually thought through that yet.
Yes,
But
I think we'll look at that. Yep.
But it reasonably would be, and then it would leave
Yeah.
room for other concepts to be developed in time. You've been very good at noticing that there's many other discrimination concepts that we have on our roadmap that we have yet to address beyond racism.
I was sort of thinking of the Venn diagram and how they overlap, how they may not overlap, the lessons that we can learn from thinking that through. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? The changes in the systemic racism concepts are akin to the trust and service provision concepts, where we just wanted to have consistent language. So we moved from limiting to negatively affecting each of the core, basic needs, just for consistency. Next slide. Any questions on the diagnostic concept before we move to goals? All right, next slide. I want to thank our amazing friend, Masha, for outlining some of these concepts as necessary goals. These are all new concepts here, having access to peer support I want to note that that is a goal that peer support and connection to peer support has been a continual intervention across many of our domains, but we've never built a goal for it yet. So it's long overdue. Having self-determination is a goal that was identified in our incarceration domain, and it's applicable here. And so it's kind of a two purposes concept. Same thing with the feels goals are affirmed by care team. That was identified in the incarceration concept, but was relevant here as well. We wanted to note that in our searching, we found a set of concepts that exist within SNOMED already that were so relevant for this domain and all domains that we are, we're going to be integrating them into our work going forward. That includes competent and ethical care delivered within legal standards of practice. And there's some other concepts that are coming soon. Shared leadership is a goal that was identified. Knows rights is an existing SNOMED CT concept. And shared decision making. Again, many of these concepts are relevant for most of our domains, but they were identified in the course of our work here. Oh, so Lucy, we have a lot of literature that we can offer. Mark's right to talk about it as a Venn diagram, but there's a lot of good literature that we can offer to that purpose, how we've conceptualized concepts. And in fact, last year's American Medical Association's presentation to the ICD-10 Coordination and Maintenance Committee meeting for a ICD-10 concept for racism last year actually included an American Medical Association framework of discrimination and as a super type and its different subtypes as well. But thank you for that question. We can get back to you with it there. Any other thoughts there?
The know your rights is so important, but some do and some don't. It's really surprising.
A good goal to have, though. Yeah.
And even when you do, they end up changing in front of your very eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I want to just thank community-based organizations for the extensive work they do in educating individuals about rights, right? So whether it be our tenant advocacy organization and housing justice and housing law, or our, any of our different organizations in our communities, legal aid, so many of our community-based organizations are focused just on this effort. All right, next slide. All right, so we're moving on from goals to interventions. Next slide. Knowing that many of the interventions that did not change are not on here. Again, the masters, anything that did not change is static on the master as presented in prior meetings. Lucy, we did take your suggestion to the SMEs on adding nonprofit boards and community advisory boards. Thank you for that comment, and they are included and accepted as additional programs and will be built in, into the model. So thank you. In our search, again, we found these general interventions that, again, were particularly relevant for racism, but will be added henceforth, if they're approved, to all domains, because we couldn't imagine an instance when it wasn't relevant. And they include involving client in decision-making process, maintaining the client's dignity, and maintaining and protecting the patient's, in this instance, autonomy, dignity, and human rights. Again, these are existing SNOMED CT concepts that we uncovered and then will be part of our general interventions, value sets from now on. All right, next slide. Okay. That concludes the content changes for our spring work on all of our enhancement efforts and our new domain work. Next slide. And next slide. If you, I'm going to actually go into the voting in a second. I also now just want to thank all of you for being with us through, many of you for years. As we do this work together, we would not be a community without all of you. Very, very grateful. Many of you are members who help not only in this meeting drive content and path forward with like work stream deliverables, but also help guide us in governance. And just want to say thank you for participating in this critical work. The vote, I hope we've addressed all of your questions there. If you are submitting a comment, and you have until June 5th. And thank you. Any other, oh, welcome newcomer. Wow, quite a meeting to come in. Welcome. We're grateful you're here. Any other questions or comments before we close? This is our final meeting. We'll see you again in August. We'll be on other Gravity calls, but I always say I'm going to miss this meeting in advance. I always miss you all in advance as well. Any
Sarah,
other
I
thoughts?
think we've all been in facilitated meetings, and I will just say for myself that your ability to facilitate is a whole nother level.
Yeah.
It's really extraordinary. It may be unique in history. I won't testify to that, but it's certainly been extraordinary. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lucy. And then in this particular work, I do want to give many flowers to my friend Kwesi, who I wouldn't have been able to facilitate without. So thank you, Kwesi.
Walk together, as we always do. Walk together.
Always, friend, always. All right. So we're going to give you all back a little time. Final thank yous to everybody, Gravity community, well done. And we will be busy to apply all of the concepts you voted on in our builds over the summer. And we wish you a peaceful rest of your evenings.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Sarah.
Thanks and bye.
Thanks, everyone.